Let's bring in a guest who can cut right to the heart of this debate. Joining us tonight is Utah Senator Mike Lee. Senator Lee, always good to see you.
Thank you very much. It's good to be with you.
So I've heard you before say that we shouldn't be looking for heretics, we should be looking for converts. How do you weigh in on this intra-party back and forth between the grassroots on the one side and the establishment on the other? Is this a worthwhile focus for energy and effort among conservatives, or is this a distraction from the real opposition, which is beating the Democratic Party?
Well, I think we need to remain focused on our principles and focused on our principles in a way that can help unite conservatives together behind conservative principles. Look, there is always going to be a natural tension that exists between a party's base and its elected political officials. In our case today, there is a hole in the Republican Party, and I think it's exactly the size and the shape of a conservative reform agenda. What we've done a fairly poor job of in the past as conservatives and as Republicans is explaining how it is that conservative principles, if implemented properly, will inure to the benefit of the poor and middle class and enhance economic mobility in America. That's the kind of message that can unite the party and will still keep us focused on genuinely conservative principles in a way that will benefit the whole country.
Hi, Senator Lee. This is Tara Setmayer. So with all of that being said, how do you envision doing that going into the 2014 election cycle? Because it looks like clearly the markers have been put down, and you have people like the Karl Roves and those organizations versus the Tea Party Patriots or Freedom Works, and the elections going into the midterms. How do you see the Republican Party uniting around any of the messages that you've said, without getting into this, with avoiding the GOP squabbles back and forth?
The only way any of that's going to happen is if we have an agenda, if we have a legislative agenda that focuses on conservative reform proposals. And that's why I've been rolling out a whole new line of legislative proposals to harness these conservative principles in a way that will benefit the poor and the middle class. I've got a tax code reform proposal that gets rid of the marriage tax penalty and the parent tax penalty. I've got a transportation reform proposal that pushes most of the funding authority and most of the money back to the states, where the states can do more with less money. I've got another proposal to reform our higher education funding system so as to make higher education less affordable and help improve the quality by pushing more authority to the states relative to the accreditation process. We've got more and more proposals coming, and we've got others that have been filed. And we've got people in both houses of Congress on the Republican side of the aisle who are getting behind these things. The more people who get behind these things will recognize that this is how we expand the party, this is how we win elections, and this is how we succeed in incorporating conservative principles into our governing strategy.
Senator Lee, this is Will Cain. That's certainly a laudable goal, and it's a role you have outlined for yourself in the back rooms of the Senate, outlining what a conservative agenda should be with serious, real policy proposals. And I appreciate your desire to have everyone rally around a common reform agenda. However, there will be fights in the primary. There will be those that call themselves the pragmatists and those that call themselves the principled conservatives. And this fight will happen. To me, honestly, what I often see is a difference in tone. It doesn't mean there aren't real principled differences, but I definitely see a difference in tone. Let's just assume for a moment that your reform agenda were adopted. What's the tone that is going to win?
The tone that's going to win is one that focuses on this is how we're going to help you and your family. It's something that speaks to the middle class and to the poor in America, that helps us as a party to shed the label that has been designed for us by those on the left, the sort of caricatured label that says we're somehow the party of the top 1%. And these things simply aren't true. We're conservative, not in spite of our compassion. We are conservative because we are compassionate. And that's really the tone that we're trying to strike, Will.
Senator Lee, I know you've got to go back to a vote in just a minute, so quickly before we let you run, what do you think, honestly, was the single most constructive thing to come out of this CPAC? Of all the speeches, of all the rallies, of everything that happened there, was it a sense of unity? Was it a sense of purity? What was the lesson that people should have, the takeaway that people should have from this most recent CPAC?
Well, I think you had countless quotations of and references to Ronald Reagan. And a lot of those related in one way or another to Ronald Reagan's famous comment that we need to use bold colors rather than pastels. We do need to show contrast as a party. We need to show a clear distinction between conservative ideology and progressive thought which has taken hold in Washington over the last 75 years or so. When we use bold colors and avoid the pastels, that's how we win elections. That's also how we change the government in a way that's going to benefit the poor and the middle class.
All right, Senator Lee, thank you as always for giving us your time. Good to see you. We appreciate it.